Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Christmas universe. I'm very excited about this because we're finally going to talk about the Christmas listings for 2025 for BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel. All their Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and Boxing Day stuff has all been confirmed, so we can now finally get a glimpse at what their Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day plans are going to look like this year, and hopefully this will help you sort of get an idea of what to expect from all these channels going into these dates and which channel you prefer the most on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. But anyway, let's begin, shall we? And we're going to kick things off with BBC One, of course. We might as well kick off with the BBC channels. So we're going to start with BBC One, and we're starting with, of course, Christmas Eve, we basically kick things off following Brett 9:15 a.m. They're going to be having the BBC One showing of this year's CBeebies Panto Cinderella has been set for Christmas Eve at 9:15. For those who end up missing it on CBeebies, will have a chance to watch it on BBC One on Christmas Eve morning. And then at 10:20 is when BBC One will finally show the animation that they talked about at Children in Need, the Fancy Threads of Hope, that animation that they were hyping up, will now be showing on Christmas Eve, 10:20 on BBC One, which means it will debut on CBeebies likely just a few days before it debuts on BBC One. So that's how we're probably looking at things for the Punsey Threads of Hope. But either way, it debuts on BBC One this Christmas Eve. Then at 10:45, we get the very first Puss in Boots movie. Obviously, Puss in Boots, Shrek's friend, obviously. 12:05, BBC finally gets their hands on Minion. Yes, the very first Minions movie debuts on the BBC at 12:05, Christmas Eve afternoon. If you want to see the very first Minions movie, then you'll now get to see it on BBC One this year. And then, of course, after the news at 5 minutes to 2, they're going to show Shaun the Sheep, The Flight Before Christmas, followed by Wallace and Gromit, A Close Shave at 2:25. And then, of course, 5 minutes to 3 is when we get our first of our new movies for Christmas on BBC One. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the animated Spider-Man movie, the latest animated Spider-Man movie that came out in 2023 will finally come to BBC One this Christmas Eve for those who want to see Miles Morales teaming up with his, I guess, a good friend of his, Gwen Stacy, who's the girl Spider-Man. If you're into Marvel, you'll know these characters very well. And obviously Miles Morales had a video game also made out of him back in 2020. You'll get to see that Spider-Man animated movie as a movie premiere on Christmas Eve, 5 minutes to 3. Then we come to afternoons at 5:30 when we get Paddington 1. Yes, Paddington 1 will be shown on Christmas Eve as well, so there's another movie to look forward to on Christmas Eve, which will then lead to the Christmas Eve EastEnders, 5 minutes to 7. And then this is the one that I found very bizarre, and why they put this on Christmas Eve, I don't know, but they've decided at 7:25 p.m. to put the Great British Sewing Bee Celebrity Christmas Special on, which apparently, they thought sewing is festive for Christmas Eve, apparently. Was expecting Stuffed It to appear on Christmas Eve. Apparently it's not planned for Christmas Eve. They've decided to put it on the day before, so therefore we're getting the Great British Sewing Bee Celebrity Christmas Special on Christmas Eve at 7:25. And then that follows with a re-showing of Gavin and Stacey, the finale at 8:20. 10 p.m, the Two Doors Down Christmas Special from BBC Scotland, and then eventually that leads into another showing of the documentary Gavin and Stacey, A Fond Farewell at 10:50. That leads us directly into this year's Midnight Mass at 11:50, and that is Christmas Eve on BBC One this year. So obviously it's great to see Gavin and Stacey the finale getting a repeat, and that Two Doors Down is getting a showing on Christmas Eve. It's just a little unfortunate we have basically go through the Great British Sewing Bee on Christmas Eve, apparently, because BBC seems to think very highly of this show over Stuffed It for some reason, but there you go. But yeah, so that's Christmas Eve on BBC One. Now we come to the big day. Hopefully they could do a little bit better on Christmas Day, right? Well, let's see, shall we? So we start at 9 a.m. The Gruffalo and Friends animations, The Snail, the Whale, and Stickman. So we have Snail, the Whale at 9, Stickman at 9:30. Christmas morning service at 10. That will then lead to 11 for the first time on BBC One, the showing of Bluey. So Bluey will be getting its first BBC One showing on, if you're a fan of Bluey. Obviously, it makes sense because it's a very popular series on C movies currently and across the world. And then at 11:40 we have Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, the first movie of Christmas Day, followed by Roald Dahl's Matilda the Musical at 1. Then we obviously get the news leading into the King's Christmas Message. Following that will be the debut of this year's Julie Dawes animation, The Scarecrow's Wedding at 3:10. Probably one of my shows I'm very looking forward to watching on Christmas Day. We are getting the Gladiators on Christmas Day. The Celebrity Gladiators special comes out on Christmas Day at 3:35. Very happy about this because it means that we basically get Gladiators on Christmas Day, and I love it. So then that will lead to this year's Shaun the Sheep festive animation, Feliz Navidad, that debuts on BBC One at 4:35 on Christmas Day, for those who love Shaun the Sheep. And then at 4:45 we get another Christmas Day with The Weakest Link, so Weakest Link once again on the big day. That will then lead at 5:30 with the Strictly Come Dancing Christmas special. So the Strictly special is on a bit later this year. 5:30 is the time slot for this year's Strictly special. And then 6:45 we've got Michael McIntyre's Christmas Wheel, Litchell, Gavin and Stacey being one of the experts. And then we have there's going to be two EastEnders on Christmas Day. First one at 7:45, and then at 8:50 we have the first of two parts, Call the Midwife. 9:15 will be the showing of this year's Amandaland Christmas special, which has been quite popular on BBC One over the last few months. So it's finally going to get its first showcase on Christmas Day. So hopefully this may end up becoming a tradition going forward. And then at 9:45 we get part 2 of this year's EastEnders Christmas special. And then of course at 10:15 we get the Mrs. Brown's Boys special for this year. Following the news we get a classic absolute fab Christmas special at 11, followed by 11:35 with the movie When Harry Met Sally. So that is the Christmas Day highlights for this year. And of course, as you can tell, obviously no Doctor Who this year, because of course Doctor Who's not going to be back on Christmas Day till next year. So this is the Christmas Day we've got this year. Then we go into Boxing Day, which kicks off with Shaun the Sheep, The Farmer's Llamas at 9, followed by another chance to see one of the previous Shaun the Sheep specials at 9:30 a.m. And then 9:45 we get the Gruffalo, followed by the Gruffalo's Child at 10:15. 10:45 we get the Wallace and Gromit movie, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. 12 p.m. will be BBC One's first showing of Peter Rabbit 1. Yes, the very first Peter Rabbit with James Corden. Following that we get Minions Rise of Gore at 2. And then at 3:30 we get the movie premiere of Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, debuting on Boxing Day. And then after the news at 5:20 we get Paddington 2, followed by at 7 with the Would I Lie to You Christmas special. I believe this is the new Christmas special. It might be the past one, but either way, hopefully it should be the new Would I Lie to You Christmas special. And then we have at 7:30 the Repair Shop Christmas special will now be shown on Boxing Day this year. And then part 2 of Call the Midwife's Christmas special at 8:30, followed by EastEnders at 9:30. Likely after the news will probably be a match. There's a good chance it will probably be a match of the day for Boxing Day, because usually match of the day is always on Boxing Day. So we're probably going to get match of the day following the news this Boxing Day. But either way, this is a glimpse at what Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day is going to look like for the BBC this year. For those who are wondering what this year's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day looks like, that's what BBC One's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day looks like this year. And then we go into BBC Two's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day and Boxing Day. And this is what BBC Two's got planned for Christmas Eve we're going to start with. So we started 6:30 a.m. with a Richard Osman's Festive House of Games, 7 a.m. with the Celebrity Escape to the Country, the Gardener's World Winter Special at 8, and then the first movie for BBC Two on Christmas Eve will be Citizen Kane. 11 a.m. will be Homes Under the Hammer, Bargain Hunt Special at 12, Escape to the Country 12:40, then that will then lead to the wintry favourite Meet Me in St. Louis at 1:25 p.m. followed by, and then we go at 3:15 p.m. with Dora Day, I Don't Even Like Apple Pie, which is another, I guess, a movie related on BBC Two for Christmas Eve. And then Caroline Jane at 4:05 on Christmas Eve. And then at 5:45, the traditional Christmas service for BBC Two, Carols from Kings. 7 p.m. will be another of this year's Festive House of Games from Richard Osman, a new episode for Christmas Eve. And then a brand new episode of Celebrity Mastermind at 7:30. Followed by the Only Connective special at 8, University Challenge at 8:30, Mordor White House Code Christmas Fishing for this year is at 9, and then at 10 p.m. we get the Ghost Story for Christmas, The Room in the Tower will be debuting at 10, and then at 10:30 we get the classic movie An Indecent Proposal, which is the first time BBC has shown this since, I believe, the 90s, so it's been a while since they've showed this one, and then 20 minutes after midnight they'll be showing the movie The Duchess as another late movie into the early hours of Christmas Day. So that is what BBC Two's Christmas Eve is looking like, which is actually, there's a little bits of stuff here and there that might tickle your fancy. And then Christmas Day, they're going to start things off with My Life at Christmas, another chance to catch up with the last episode of this year's series. And then the Royal Institution Christmas Lecture will be shown at 7, another chance to catch up last year's Christmas lecture. And then a brand new feature for Christmas Day is at 8, a Christmas carol with Michelle McGowan, who you may remember from Pop Idol. She's going to be doing a Christmas choir for BBC Two at 8 a.m. 8:45, Carols from Kings, Wallace and Gromit, A Matter of Loaf and Death, followed by A Grand Day Out at 10:30. Agatha Christie's Talking Pictures, it's at 5 minutes to 10, followed by the Nutcracker from the Royal Ballet at 12:35, or 11:25 should I say. And then 1:05 we have White Christmas, the Bing Crosby movie. And then after the King's Speech at 3:10 we get the classic movie of Agatha Christie's Evil Under the Sun. That will then lead to Dad's Army at the BBC at 5, a classic Christmas Dad's Army at 6, Christmas special from Keeping Up Appearances at 6:40, which obviously paid homage to the main character who passed away earlier this year. And then we have Morecambe and Whitehouse. We have a Morecambe and Wise Lost Tapes at 7:30. Yeah, nearly got that wrong there. And then 8:10 we have Morecambe and Wise Christmas Show 1975 with Robin Day. And then at 9:15 they get the movie Jaws for Christmas. Yeah, they've decided to bring Jaws to Christmas Day on BBC Two, and the reason why is because they've got a documentary that follows the very first movie at 11:15, which is Jaws at 50, The Infinite Inside Story, which they'll be debuting on Christmas Day at 11:15. And then at 12:40 a.m. into the early hours of Boxing Day will be And Now for Something Completely Different. So that is basically Christmas Day for BBC Two this year. Then we go into Boxing Day for BBC Two, where you'll get another chance to see Richard Osman's Festive House of Games at 6:35, the Great British Sewing Bee special at 7:05. Scarecrow's Wedding will then come to BBC Two at 7:08 for a rerun. The Best of Weatherman Walking at 8:30, and then the first movie for Boxing Day is Bringing Up Baby at 9, followed by What's Up Doc at 10:40, Homes of the Hammer at 12:10, Bargain Hunt at 10:01, Escape to the Country at 10:02, followed by The Italian Job at 10:00, into the movie The Great Escape, which is a World War II classic, at 4:45. Another Festive House of Games at 7:30, Celebrity Mastermind at 8, Only Connected Boxing Special at 8:30, University Challenge at 9, and then we get the movie at 9:30, The Great Escapers, another wartime related movie planned. So that's at least, it gives you a little bit of a glimpse at the Boxing Day highlights for BBC Two this year. So that's a little, like I said, a little taste of things to come for Boxing Day, this Boxing Day on BBC Two. So now we go into ITV's highlights for Christmas Eve, and I think a lot of people are saying this, but they truly like what ITV are doing this year, and I kind of do agree. I feel like ITV have actually got a really nice schedule going for Christmas this year. So let's have a look at what we got. So for ITV1, we've obviously got the usual, the daytime shows are going to be a part of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So Good Morning Britain, Lorraine, This Morning, Loose Women, all getting episodes on Christmas Eve, which then leads to 1:35 with the movie E.T. The Extraterrestrial is going to be the first movie for Christmas Eve on ITV, followed by Santa Claus the Movie with Dudley Moore at 3:45. Then that leads to The Chase at 5:55 p.m. And then we get our Christmas Eve Emmerdale at 5 to 7, followed by Royal Carols Together at Christmas at 7:25, which is a traditional Christmas service one of the traditional Christmas services for ITV, which they have with the Duchess of Cambridge. And then we have the Christmas Eve Coronation Street 8:40, Love Actually at 9:10 for those who love Love Actually. And then at 11:40 will be the Christmas Carols on ITV for this year. I believe does it say who's hosting? Yeah, it doesn't say who's hosted it yet, but we should find out in the coming days who's going to be doing that for this year for ITV. And then of course following that at 12:40 they're going to do a reshowing of Steve Blackstore's Royal Arctic Challenge, basically doing a challenge that Prince Charles did in 1975. He's trying to replicate that in 2025. So that is the Christmas Eve highlights for ITV1, and then Christmas Day we start with Royal Carols Together at Christmas at 6. Then it will lead to the Christmas daytime specials of Good Morning Britain at 7, The Rain at 9, the This Morning Christmas Day at 10, and the Loose Women Christmas Day episode at 12. James Martin's Christmas Day is at 1, and then after the King's Speech at 3:10 we get Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark as the first movie for ITV1 on Christmas Day. And then after the news, they basically going to be giving us a Christmas It'll Be All Right on the Night at 5:45, and that'll be a brand new episode for Christmas Day. And then we have Emmerdale at 6:15, Coronation Street at 7:15, the Bullseye Christmas Special is going to be on Christmas Day at 8:15, the 1% Club Christmas Special at 9:15, followed by the Ravish Ragadathan's Parents' Evening Christmas Special is also planned for Christmas Day at 10:15, and then we get another showing of Red One 11:10 on Christmas Day. So that is the Christmas Day highlights for ITV, which I have to say that's looking kind of cool. The fact that we're getting Bullseye on Christmas Day is certainly a treat for indeed. And then we go into Boxing Day for ITV, and Boxing Day highlights includes the Felcher's Family Farm at Christmas at 6, Love Your Christmas with Alan Titchmarsh at 6:50, James Martin's Christmas Day at 8:40, followed by Shrek at 10:40, and then after that we get the ITV Racing at 12:30. Bullseye Christmas Special gets its first repeat at 3 on Boxing Day, and then we get Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom at 4:15, Emmerdale at 6:30, Coronation Street at 7, the Masked Singer Christmas Special at 7:30, the Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire at 9 kicks off on Boxing Day, and they're just some of the highlights that make up Boxing Day on ITV. So these are just some of the highlights for this Boxing Day, and I'm sure there'll be some more movies added to Boxing Day but at least this is a good glimpse of cool things to look forward to this Boxing Day on ITV. So now we come to Channel 4 on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day and Boxing Day, and we start with Christmas Eve because obviously they tend to love showing animations on Christmas Eve on Channel. We start off on Christmas Eve with the Doghouse at Christmas at 6:10, and then they start showing the animations from 7:05 with the Snowman. 7:35 we're going on a bear hunt. 8 a.m. will be the Snowman and the Snow Dog. 8:30 the Tiger Who Came to Tea. 9:05 the infamous Father Christmas, and then Terry Pritchard's The Abominable Snow Baby is on at 9:35. The first movie for Channel 4 on Christmas Eve is going to be Babe the Pig at 10:10, and then they're going to re-show the Top Toys of Christmas documentary at 12:05, and then at 1:35 we get the movie Sister Act with Whoopi Goldberg, and then at 3:35 we get the animation of the Snowman again for the afternoon of Christmas Eve, followed by Mog's Christmas at 4:10, the Snowman Snow Dog at 4:40, which will then lead to the very first Home Alone at 5:30, which is obviously a tradition for Christmas Eve on Channel 4, which will then lead at 7:30 with Channel 4's festive family drama, Finding Father Christmas. 9 p.m, the 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown special, and obviously this year's Last Legs special for Christmas will be debuting on Christmas Eve at 10, followed by the Celebrity Gogglebox special at 11, and then at midnight they'll be re-showing this year's First Dates Christmas special. So that is Christmas Eve, Channel 4. And then we come into Christmas Day when we'll obviously have another Doghouse at Christmas start at 5 past 6. Then we start the animations again with the Snowman at 5 to 7. 7:20 we have the Snowman and the Snow Dog. We're going on the Bear Hunt at 7:50. The Abominable Snow Baby at 8:25. And then 8:55 will be Father Christmas. The Tiger Who Came to Tea at 9:30. And then we get Babe 2, the Pig of the City at 10, obviously 9:55. 11:45 a.m. we return to another showing of the Snowman. Mog's Christmas at 12:20. The Snowman Snow Dog at 12:50. And then after the news, we get the alternative Christmas message at 1:25, which will then lead to the 1:35 movie Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit. And then we get a new movie for Channel 4 on Christmas Day, because this was the movie that was supposed to be planned for BBC One, but they've managed to get their hands on it for Christmas, which is, of course, Disney's Frozen 2 is coming to Channel 4 on Christmas Day at 3:45, and that's going to be one of the new movies for Channel 4 this year. And then we have Home Alone 2 returning to Channel 4 on Christmas Day at 5:40, and then we get The Great Christmas Bake Off debuting at 7:55 on Christmas Day. Gogglebox at 9:15, which will be the Christmas episode of Gogglebox. Notting Hill at 11:15, and then 1:30 a.m. into the early hours of Boxing Day, they give us the movie East is East. And that is the highlights for Christmas Day on Channel 4, which is looking very nice. And then we come into Boxing Day on Channel 4, where we have Jamie's Christmas Shortcuts at 7:20. The first movie of Boxing Day is called Born Free at 8:20. And then we get the Doghouse Christmas Special at 10:15. Inside Lapland at 11:20. Turner and Hutch at 12:25. We have the Great Christmas Bake Off at 5:15. And then we have the Doghouse at Christmas again at 6:40, followed by the Great Celebrity Pottery Throwdown 2025 at 7:40, the Big Fat Quiz of the Year at 9, and another show in a Gogglebox at 11, followed by at 1 a.m. in the morning, the Last Leg Christmas Special. And just some of the highlights that make up Boxing Day for Channel 4 this year. So yeah, very nice Boxing Day highlights for Channel 4 to get hyped about. So yeah, we all love a bit of Boxing Day highlights on Channel 4, and I love it. So there you go. That is what Channel 4 is up to this Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. So that is pretty much all the listings for all these four main channels, to give you a taste of what they're up to this Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. And I'm sure they'll probably, who knows, they might add some last minute addition along the way, but as it stands, this is these 3 days what the schedule looks like for these 3 days on all four of these main channels for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. And of course, we're going to have to wait till next week until we get to find out what's happening with New Year's Eve and New Year's Day for these four respective channels. And I will see you guys in our New Year listings. And in fact, we'll have an episode coming up looking at the Top of the Pops schedule for Christmas. If you're curious to see what BBC 3, BBC 4, ITV, and possibly Film 4 are doing for Christmas this year, as we're going to be doing some episodes looking at the Christmas schedules for these channels leading into the Christmas holidays as well. So I'll see you guys for these episodes coming up. See you then.
Christmas. Oh, I can't wait to see those faces.